Look at this terrifying new report that just came out. Chicago's drinking water is full of lead, report says. That seems like a big deal to me. I don't know how you guys feel about it. That seems like, should be a national news story, should get probably more coverage than Stormy Daniels, but don't hold your fucking breath. They say toxic lead has been seeping into Chicago's drinking water, and the city is dragging its feet to fix the problem, according to an analysis published Thursday by the Chicago Tribune. Lead was found in 70% of the 2,797 homes the Tribune sampled across the city since January of 2016. And 3 in 10 of those had lead concentrations higher than 5 parts per billion, the Food and Drug Administration's upper limit for lead in bottled water. Since the lead crisis in Flint, Michigan, Chicago has distributed thousands of free lead testing kits to its residents in an attempt to figure out how bad the problem was. But once the results started coming in, the city buried them. Chicago hadn't updated the city-run website tracking the results of its own tests in more than 6 months until the Tribune started asking questions. So, lead-contaminated water, which is incredibly dangerous, and the city tries to cover it up. Can't imagine a bigger story in a sane world that cares about human beings. Have you heard about it? I hadn't heard about it. By the way, even in print media usually does a pretty decent job. My ire is usually saved for, the nightly news and the 24-hour news network, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Even in print, I didn't see much of this. Chicago Tribune had it. I saw it in Vice News. I'm not sure I saw it anywhere else. What the fuck, man? What the fuck? It's amazing to me that our leaders have the nerve to try to tell us we have to go into Damascus, we have to go into Syria to bomb, to save lives. So kill people to save people. Weird already, but stop and think about it for 2 seconds. They can't even save fucking children in Flint, Michigan. And they're talking about saving kids in Fallujah and saving kids in Kandahar and saving kids in Damascus. Perhaps they don't even really care about saving kids. Just a thought, which is, of course, the case, as we all know. But our country is falling apart, and we're worried about intervening elsewhere, and we talk about intervening elsewhere. We talk about using our military and bombing places and rebuilding places. How about you rebuild here? I don't know if you've seen the blight in Detroit, but goddamn is it an apocalyptic scenario over there. All these jobs that were outsourced, then the infrastructure crumbles, and most people move out, and there's rank poverty everywhere you look. Now we have, in Chicago, their drinking water is contaminated. By the way, you give a developing kid lead, the consequences are beyond terrible. They don't develop properly. They had to take the lead out of gasoline because of countless studies that showed that crime rates spike where there's leaded gasoline in the atmosphere. So the effects that this shit has on you, it poisons you, it literally makes people violent. And we're talking about contaminated water in Chicago. Barely anybody covers it. And then the state buries it. They bury it. They're like, oh shit, this is a bigger problem than we thought. Instead of addressing the problem, they all try to protect their own asses and their own jobs, and they go, we gotta bury this shit. Pretend everything's already good. Jesus, man. You think it's time for a New Deal? I can't tell. Flint, Michigan doesn't have clean water. Chicago doesn't have clean water. 70% of Chicago, no clean water. I mean, we have a country that gets a grade of D+ when you look at the Society of Civil Engineers report on our infrastructure. I don't understand not just why we don't update it. I don't understand why we don't try to make it number 1 in the world. We should have the number 1 infrastructure in the world. That's the envy of the world. We should have the high-speed trains. We should have pristine airports. I mean, it's embarrassing the way it is right now. And how many people don't have jobs and need jobs? How many people aren't making a living wage? Well, offer them a living wage. Offer them a job. Rebuild the entire country. Rebuild these pipes. This is totally necessary. But no, instead, not only are we not fixing it, they're burying the problem in the first place. There's lead in the water in Chicago. I can't say enough of how much this is a total system failure that got us to this point. It's a failure of the Republicans. It's a failure of the Democrats. It's a failure of the powers that be. It's a failure of the elites. It's a failure of the media. It's a failure at every single level.